to another business tip from the Trades Coach, helping you to build a more profitable business. Today I just want to look at labour rates and looking at whether you are charging enough for your labour in order to make sure you're covering all the overhead cost of your business and making yourself a fair profit along the way. Because I think one of the big issues with labour rates is that if a project is ever going to blow out an overall cost, typically it's the labour that causes the issue. That's certainly what I find with most of my clients when they're complaining that projects haven't come in as they expected. Generally the materials usually look after themselves because they're probably easier to calculate the amount of materials that go into a project. However, sometimes calculating the labour content of a project is difficult, or you uncover unforeseen circumstances, or people just don't work as fast as you do, and the actual labour cost tends to blow out. And because labour is a large component of many projects, that means that the impact of that and the profitability of the overall project can be quite dramatic and blow out quite quickly. The other factor, I guess, with calculating labour rates is that people do tend to talk about that there's a market rate out there. I can only charge so much because that's kind of what the market sort of says. And to a degree, I agree that's fair enough. There are kind of what they call market rates out there, at least amongst the trade anyway. Maybe your clients don't know so much, but certainly there are limitations as to what you can charge. I think it's always good though to look at that rule of thumb as to what that market rate is, but I think it is healthy for you as a business owner to have a little bit more of objective information about your particular situation in your business as to what you do really need to be charging from a financial management point of view in order to have a successful, profitable business. So that's what I want to look at a little bit today. And I've got a little spreadsheet tool that I use with my clients when we're looking at figuring out kind of what the necessary charge out rate is in order to cover the overheads of the business, allowing for the fact that you're never going to get 100% kind of yield out of your labour force. So we'll look at that spreadsheet now, and if you want a copy of the spreadsheet, you can drop me an email and I'm happy to send it to you. So first thing we look at here, we start with the overheads of the business. And if you don't know what the overheads are in your business, then you definitely should get a hold of me and we need to have a discussion about that, because it's important for you to know effectively what it costs to turn the lights on in the morning, right? So these are the non-job costs that it costs you to run your business. This is your accounting fees, your advertising, insurances, repairs and maintenance, those sort of things that aren't direct job charged cost to the client or the job. So in our job here, or in our business, sorry, I've allowed for the fact that there's $50,000 worth of overhead costs in my business that I effectively have to pay almost regardless of whether I'm doing any work or not. That also doesn't allow for, and you may want to add in, a kind of management or a manager salary allowance for yourself. If you are the owner of the business but still working on the tools, you should probably allow something more than that. So let's do that. Let's add another, say, $25,000 allowance for you as a manager. So let's bump that up to $75,000, true overheads of the business. And in my business here, I've got 4 chargeable people who I'm able to recover my labour, my overheads, sorry, with a labour charge out. So now we just jump on to figuring out this hourly calculation here. And this sheet, just as a note, is on the basis of the business having employees. If you use labour-only contractors to provide your labour factor, then obviously the calculation is probably a bit simpler because you don't have to worry about holidays and that kind of stuff. But for argument's sake, I'm assuming here that my business, I have employees that I pay on PAYE basis working for me. So we just start out here, 365 days of the year, obviously, not working weekends, public holidays. So effectively, you're paying for 250 odd days a year, and on the basis of an 8-hour working day, that's around about 2,000 hours that you're paying for each person. In that, of course, you're paying for time that they're not working, so there's some 4 weeks of annual leave here and some sick days potentially, so there's 25 days that you're paying for that you definitely don't are able to charge them out. So there is a maximum of 226 working days worked in the year that you are able to recover your labour cost against. And again, I have here made another assumption. You can change in the spreadsheet. You change kind of the figures in the yellow boxes. So 8 hours a day. So they're available to work around about 1,800 hours per year. The next line here is a little bit of a stab in the dark, really. It's kind of looking at what the productivity of that person is. Obviously, there are times where you aren't able to charge out their time onto a job because there might be meeting time or downtime or what have you that you just have to absorb yourself. Also, maybe that this person isn't as productive as you are because they're probably just not as experienced and don't work as fast. So put a factor in there realistically as to what the maximum productivity percentage you're going to get out of them. I've just said here 90% is the maximum productivity you get out of that person. So the net effective hours after allowing for that productivity is really closer to sort of 1,600 hours. So then when you compare it with what you are paying for, 2,000 hours roundabout up here, with how much true productivity you're going to get out of that person, at best in this particular situation, it's 80% productivity, and that can be a bit of a shock to some people. They think you're paying for all that sort of time. They should be productive for that time, but in reality it just doesn't happen. So probably 80% is the best that you can get out of it, and to be honest, sometimes it's probably lower than that. So then you look at down here, you put in the actual agreed hourly rate that you're paying them, and that includes tax. You've got ACC levies that will obviously vary a bit depending on what industry you're in. If you're paying KiwiSaver, you may put some other sort of allowances in there as well, long service leave, or there might be some allowance for bonuses that you might pay from time to time, but you want to factor that into the actual labour costs. So the burdened rate of somebody on $27 an hour is really closer to $28.50. And then of course once you allow for the productivity of that person being at best only 80% in this particular example, then really even though you're paying them $27, it's costing you at least $35 an hour to have that person on the payroll. And again, that can be a bit of a shock to some people. Then we obviously talk about, dragging from the other page there, the overhead allowance. If you are looking to recover your overheads in the labour charge out rate that you apply to your jobs, which is we talk about 1150 odd. So for somebody who you are paying $27 to, really the minimum, and I stress minimum charge out rate for that person needs to be like $47 an hour really, in order to purely just cover the overheads of your business and allow for the level of productivity that you get out of them. And again, reminder, there is no profit in that rate. There's no net profit for the business in that $47 an hour charge out rate. It's purely just recovering cost. So if you're looking to factor in profit for the company. You either need to make sure that that is gained through the markups and what have you make on your materials, or you need to again put in an additional allowance on top of that $47 an hour for net profit for the business. So hopefully that's helpful to you and maybe a little bit eye-opening for you. And then obviously you can use this tool if you're paying other people. So somebody's being paid $35 an hour, then that bumps that up to $57 an hour bare cost. So we'll just flick back to the slides now, and just to finish up, just on another point here, I guess, around labour, is remembering the fact that no two jobs are created equal, and it's perhaps unrealistic to have only one labour charge out rate, a flat rate across all of your jobs. You perhaps are better to look at each individual job separately and developing for yourself a bit of a complexity matrix, I suppose you like to say, or for different sort of jobs, and applying an additional markup rate to the overall labour cost based on the complexity of the job, or maybe the site access. It might be a steep site that's difficult access, or tight access. You're having to carry materials, across some area that takes some time, or perhaps as you're going up in floors, you add a labour factor rate because you're carrying stuff up and down ladders and stairs and things like that. That just reduces your efficiency. So when you're looking at calculating your actual labour cost, do look at the complexity of the job, and maybe even look at the owner that you're working for. Are they easy to work for? Are they going to be a bit of a challenge and require extra kind of managing? So perhaps you need to add a bit of a hassle factor in there to your labour rate as well. So like all of these tips, I like to think that you take some action out of these, and if you want to check your labour rates, and if you want to use that labour rate calculating spreadsheet tool, drop me an email at andy@tradescoach.co.nz and I will send it to you. And perhaps the other thing is, if you don't know kind of what is the overhead cost of your business, and you don't know what it costs you to run it, that's a conversation that we should have as well, because that becomes very important in the overall driving overall profitability for your business. So hopefully that's useful to you, and I look forward to catching up with you in a future business tip. Thanks.